Tell us. Your case has become so complicated. I really don't even know how to explain it anymore. So the floor is yours. Tell us what's going on.
Well, I'm going to uncomplicate it for you a bit. So, a lot of people talk about the EUA and some other issues, but fundamentally, Pfizer contracted for a safe and effective vaccine for COVID 19. That is far from what they delivered. On top of that, they were supposed to, and we can talk about this in a minute, they were supposed to deliver this drug following current good manufacturing practices. It's right in the contracts. And they didn't do that either. And we can go into that issue. But what happened in the process of litigating this case is the federal government decided that this case somehow was contrary to the public health policy of the United States. And it came in and asserted that under the Biden administration, and the judge dismissed it. So now it's on appeal. They had no good cause to dismiss Brook Jackson's case, none whatsoever. They couldn't. There is a sort of a standard at DOJ in terms of when you would step in to dismiss one of these cases. They didn't meet any of those standards. They couldn't prove any good cause. But the judge went ahead and allowed the federal government to step in and dismiss the case and stop our litigation and stop our discovery against Pfizer just based on the federal government say so. We are still, and we were hopeful when the administration changed in January, that we would have a change in position within this administration. And certainly Bobby Kennedy knows all about the Pfizer fraud, and he is the client of the DOJ in this case. So we continue to appeal to Bobby and the administration to change a position on this case and let us do the work. We're willing to do the work for the American people to get the discovery and find out everything that Pfizer did. Is that
It's
simple?
frustrating. That sums it up well. But Brooke tweeted out something a few days ago that there was a glimmer of hope. What was that about? What is going on? What's the latest?
Well, I mean, we're always looking for glimmers of hope, and I'm a hopeful person. We do, the appellate court, for one, the argument has been delayed. We don't necessarily have insight into that, but they've not scheduled oral argument. So while that is awaiting scheduling, we are continuing to work as hard as we can to get the word out. And thank you so much, by the way, because very few podcasters, especially with the national reach that you have talked to Brook Jackson or talked to the attorney team on this case. And we are certainly shut out of mainstream media completely. There's no New York Times or Washington Post reporting whatsoever. I mean, we exist in this weird vacuum, like nobody wants to touch us, like it's a hot potato. And I guess it is because, we are seeing, and you've certainly testified eloquently about the numbers of injuries you're seeing and what the shot has done to people. The more they take, the more likely they are to be ill, the more likely they are to get COVID. This is really an utter failure in terms of a pharmaceutical. And I think that the American public is waking up to it. And I think once they realize the fraud that underlies what happened here, they're going to be angry. And I think that's partly why we've been suppressed to the extent that we have been.
So if you win, I'm just going to assume you are. What happens?
Well, a win would be fantastic in so many ways and for so many people because, if there's fraud at the core of this project, then all of the immunities go away. Pfizer would be opened up for liability, and the liability at this point is tremendous. I mean, I think the liability, and I've said this before, is in the trillions of dollars, which obviously means Pfizer would no longer exist as a company. It would have to go bankrupt, sell off its assets to hopefully more honest pharmaceutical companies, and we would go from there. And that's what should happen. I was a little bit disturbed at the $70 billion that Pfizer is pledging to invest. It does seem to me like they're trying to buy kind of a safe harbor with this administration. Whether Pfizer invests 70 billion or not, they don't deserve a safe harbor on this. They deserve absolute scrutiny, and they deserve to be held accountable for what they've done in this process.
Well, and then, the ASIP meeting last week. I texted you
Mhm.
about this, but you didn't respond. Uh,
Oh no,
uh,
sorry.
it's okay. We'll talk about it now. So when they were talking about the DNA contamination
Yeah.
in during the ASIP meeting, is that another legal avenue that could be pursued?
Well, it is absolutely a legal avenue. The DNA contamination, like I just said to you, the contract requires current good manufacturing practices. And part of that is to develop a safe product. And this product is far from safe. I'm extremely concerned about that. And I don't think most people understand this. I know you do, but the process in the clinical trials, which was not good and resulted in injuries and deaths in the clinical trials, and in fact, more deaths in the quote unquote vaccine arm than in the placebo arm, that was a more pure product than what was foisted upon the world. What came out and was scaled up for manufacturing was something called process 2. Process 1 was tested against 40,000 some people. Process 2 has virtually no testing. I think a couple of hundred people were tested against process 2. And the problem with process 2 is, first of all, it's new. Second of all, we have seen that the platform from which they pull the mRNA is based on E. coli. The E. coli itself is not completely stripped out of what is then encapsulated in a lipid nanoparticle, and that's going into the body. So we are getting strands of DNA from E. coli along with the mRNA, and we really don't know what the impact is going to be on somebody. And I'm no scientist, but obviously I've talked to Kevin McKernan about this a great deal. And this issue of something called proteins. They're injecting unknown, new, unique proteins into people's bodies, and our cells and our bodies are reacting to those proteins in many, many different ways. And I kind of have rough numbers in my head. I wonder how this compares with what you see. 80% of the people who took the shots seem to be okay. I don't know long term, but for now, they seem to be okay. 20% of what I see, somebody has some problem at least. And of those 20%, a quarter or 5% of the overall people have a serious problem, ranging from a cancer to a death to whatever. But 5% have a serious problem going on. And that's where you great doctors come into play. We got to figure out how to deal with these unique things we're seeing in people and happening to people. So process 2, I think people need to really focus on process 2 because it is really untested. It was a way to scale up manufacturing so they could make billions of these shots and sell billions of these shots and get them into people. But that is really, really new territory for all of us as a human race, frankly.
Right.
Does
I
that
had
answer?
Kevin McKernan on. Yeah, well, Kevin McKernan came on last week, and we talked about that process too, and it introduced SV40, and SV40 inhibits our tumor suppressor gene P53, and that is the theory behind why we're seeing an explosion in cancers. So,
Well,
yeah,
let's talk a little
you
bit about why they used SV40. SV40 was
mhm,
intentionally put in there in the plasmid base because it actually causes the E. coli to grow rapidly. So
mhm,
it's a
right.
segment of SV40 that they put in there, and it makes things grow. Well, cancer is uncontrolled growth, so it almost makes sense logically, just from a common sense, non-scientific view. You don't want to mess around with SV40. It's triggering growth of cells. Well,
Okay.
it's good cells, maybe it's bad cells, but it's triggering growth of cells. And I think that's a key to this. And then Kevin is very clear about the fact that they knew the SV40 segment was in there, and they hid that in the documents that they presented to the European Medicines Agency, to the FDA, to all the pharmaceutical regulators. So, hey, Brooke.
Yes. Hey,
Hey,
Brooke.
hey guys. Sorry, we have had
Uh,
technical difficulties today, apparently.
yeah, there's a theme. That's a theme of today.
Yeah.
Thank you
Well,
so
I
much
don't
for
think
coming
your
on.
producer, well, thank you for having us. I don't think your producer knew that this was going to be like a threesome. So
Oh, okay.
I was
Well,
I was in the background for a while.
I'm so sorry, but thank
No,
you
it's
for your
okay.
patience.
It's
And
okay. It's kind of great to
um,
just sit back and listen to the conversation. You know,
yeah,
I think you have some, uh, vaccine mandate cases too. I was listening to Brian earlier and just looking on his Twitter feed because I'd love to help get that information out. I mean, there's so much, right? There's so much going on that I feel like we can help bring attention to. Um,
Well,
yeah,
yeah, that's right. And I think that the effort of everyone out there, including We the Patriots and Freedom Council and the lawyers that have now really gotten to know each other and we're sharing information. I want people, I know a lot of times we're talking about this and we think, oh my gosh, it's hopeless. It's going to be hard to change, whatever. It is hard to change, but it's not hopeless. We've had tremendous success in certainly along the religious liberty lines, and he's got that case going up to the Supreme Court. I expect him to be successful in that case. I really do. The courts and the federal judges have stepped up, and they've done a lot. They need to do a little more, and they need to really go after, the FDA and Pfizer and what happened there, and our captive regulatory agencies, which is obviously starting to change as well. And I'll tell you the other thing about the courts. They just think, one of our populations that's particularly at hazard are the healthcare workers and the healthcare students and the kids trying to get into healthcare because for some reason, the courts have backed down in the military, they've backed down at employment and federal contracting, but they will not back down. And they're continuing to enforce mandates, not just COVID mandates, but flu mandates and other mandates for healthcare workers. And everyone deserves a choice in terms of what medications are being put in their body. So that's one of the things that's astounding to me. That healthcare workers are really on the chopping block right now, and the sacrificial lambs in terms of our public health policy. And I think obviously, Mary, we need you guys. We don't want you to be the test subjects here of this experimental stuff.
yeah, it's unbelievable. I don't. So that's why. What did you think of Brian Festa's statements about changing the Title VII and making a change through Congress? Do you feel like that's the right way to go? How do we get to the point where we just can't require anybody to have something injected into their bodies no matter what?
Well, it's very interesting. If you go back to the founding of the country, Benjamin Rush, you can look this up on the web, I think. He said that healthcare was going to be the Achilles heel here and our rights. They knew that during revolutionary time periods. It's amazing the prescience that he had. So I obviously it has been an Achilles heel. Public health, supposed public health, has overridden individual liberties. And, this goes all the way back to the sterilization programs in California, in various states in the early part of the 20th century, the Buck v. Bell case, which is still good law. I mean, we literally said if you had a mental handicap, mental illness, criminal tendencies, we could sterilize you. And that was
It's
good
an
law.
incredible case. It's a sad case, Mary. If you haven't had an opportunity to read about Buck v. Bell, that's one that will just definitely encourage you to keep up what you're doing and keep up the fight.
And the other thing
Well, I
about
like.
Bucky Bell, that one went to court, but thousands and thousands of people were sterilized. Latinas in California were sterilized. They didn't want them breeding. African Americans were sterilized. People who had various handicaps were sterilized. That was a purposeful governmental program to actually I think they were trying to improve the race, believe it or not. And of course, we know
Wow.
what happened in Nazi Germany, but they literally specifically did that. Even some of our Supreme Court justices were on board, obviously, with improving the race.
That's crazy. What year was that?
I'm talking the early part of the 20th century. So, the late part of the 19th century, the eugenics movement started to get its feet under it. And then it grew, and it grew at our most elite institutions: Stanford, University of California, Harvard, Yale. The eugenics movement was alive and kicking and doing very well in the early part of the 20th century. And then some of those cases are still in place, like Jacobson was one of the key cases
Right.
that underlay Buck v. Bell, that underlay when we created concentration camps for the Japanese, the Korematsu decision. So
That's the
this
other
is
case I wanted you to
that's the other
to
one.
talk about.
It's
Yeah, there's those three cases that are just incredible. It's not, an opinion. It's not a vaccine war. It's documented. It's on the historical record, and people can just look it up. Just Google, ask your Chat GPT or whatever your favorite AI person is. Tell me about these cases. Tell me about vaccine cases. Tell me about the False Claims Act. It's right there. Fraud's in your face, documented, and it just is allowed to continue. That's what's so frustrating for me. Especially
right.
with our case, Warner. This isn't a vaccines are good or a vaccines are bad. This is a question of whether or not we are going to allow fraud to determine the outcome of whether or not it's approved or not. That's been so frustrating for me because I didn't start out this case looking to discredit medicine in any way. I still believe in it today in research. I believe it is the future of medicine, but it has to be done correctly. And until these people are held accountable and responsible for what they've done, then there's no justice. Why do we even have laws, Warner? What's the purpose?
Well, you know me. Like I said, I'm an optimist. We're going to keep fighting. We're going to keep trying, and the courts have, to an extent, not perfectly, but to an extent, they have helped to uphold our civil rights. We need more.
Sure, but
We
tell
need
me the
more.
reason that we also have courts.
Well, oh, I think I know what you're getting at. I mean, and
Yeah.
and actually, it's a really good point. What Brooke is getting ready to have me say. What the court system does that I don't think most people realize is it's a way to mediate violence in society. And the problem is, if people can't get justice, they're going to take justice into their own hands. And I think that's forgotten when we have laws like the PrEP Act that just strip us of our ability to go to court. You are actually creating a pathway that's going to cause more violence in society as people can't find justice for their dead loved ones and their dead children. They're going to take it into their own hands. Why does Fauci have security? Because there are thousands and thousands of people very angry at him who cannot get justice in the courts. And we see that everywhere in our society. I mean, I see hospital security really getting beefed up. Why? Because you can't find justice against these hospitals. We just tried a case, in June that had a bad outcome in my view, and it's very difficult to get to court in the first place, and then to find justice. And you have very, very frustrated parents and family members that they need to see a pathway to get justice for the deaths and injuries of their loved ones.
It is a festering wound, and wounds of this magnitude do not heal with time. They get bigger, and we saw what happened at the CDC, where the very frustrated man, took a gun to the CDC because, like you said, we're not seeing any justice. We're everything's being swept under the rug. Yesterday was a huge slap in the face. Brooke, I'm curious on your reaction to what happened in the Oval Office yesterday.
Hmm. Oh. Oh gosh, Mary, that's a tough one, and I'm still still like absorbing and letting it sink in. Actually, what I saw. Um, yeah, Warner, go ahead and let me think on this for a second. I want to be just very careful about what I say, especially with our potential oral arguments coming up, Mary. I don't want to ruffle the wrong feathers, but it's frustrating, when you see a man shake the hand of the person stole billions of dollars from American taxpayers for a product that, again, Warner said it was supposed to be safe and effective and prevent COVID-19, the infection of COVID-19. It does none of those things. So it is. It makes me sad to watch that for the people that have been harmed. It really does.
Yeah, I was looking at Bobby Kennedy's face very closely during that, and he didn't look real happy with
No,
that whole scene. So I'm hoping that this move, that I know some of our good federal employees uh, in there want to see accountability. I'm hoping they'll continue to push for and move for accountability. The other thing, that obviously is true is really we can't count on anyone in federal government to save us. Not Bobby Kennedy, not President Trump, not anybody. We as a people need to understand what's happened to us, and we need to get loud. And we need
Right.
to assert our power as a people and hold people like Bourla accountable for his actions. And I'll leave it right there.
yeah, and I'll just
Exactly.
be really, plainly, in my opinion, knowing what I'm sure Trump knows about what Pfizer has done. I mean, they're not new to criminal penalties, civil penalties. They they're like I can't remember what Barnes calls it. Like
Right.
they're equivalent to a high school marijuana dealer under the bleachers. When you look at the no, I don't remember whatever his phrase is that he says. It's really funny. He compares them to like the cartel, the Mexican cartel. But when you see President Trump shake the hands of Albert Bourla, to me, that doesn't scream leadership. It means that he's complicit in what
Right.
Pfizer's doing. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. To me, it's a deal with the devil. He made a deal with the
It is.
devil. And
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 it's
it's
not
so
the
Warner, I
first
think you're
hard.
absolutely right.
it's not the first
Yeah.
time. If you look back to the Merck case, Warner, I don't know if you've had an opportunity to look at that and just the history of that False Claims Act case with HIV drugs. They cut a deal, just this last year too. Trump was involved in 2017. He's involved again today. So, I mean, I hate it. I just hate it.
Well,
And that's a
yeah.
case
I
people
mean,
can look up. It's easy to look up. That's all I did. Something you said, Mary, actually triggered me looking at this case again. And I was at Simone Gold's event over the weekend and with Dr. Lynn Finn and a few others that we know. And it was the oh god, what's the term, shared medical responsibility, or like there's a phrase that you said the other day in one of your tweets, Mary. And so I started looking up that phrase, shared medical decision making or something. And then it
mhm.
as you're looking through things, you just go down these rabbit holes and find things. And every time I open my computer and do that, I find something. It's not a medical opinion. It's not you know, a medical journal article. It's actual court documents, you know, that outline and the fraud. It's right in your face.
Yeah. Well, and we really just need to keep speaking out, get louder. I've given up on the executive branch. The legislative branch, I mean, there were 7 states that tried to ban mRNA. Only one state even got a hearing out of that. So, I mean, that's sort of a lost cause. So, Warner, it's up to you. The
Well,
fate of our fate rests in your hands, and we just need to get the word out, and we need to pressure. Everybody needs to tag Pam Bondi and ask her to get out of the way so this case can move forward. And I'm very grateful to both of you for continuing this fight for 5 years now. And we will just, keep plugging along. And thank y'all for coming on and bearing with the tech problems. But we will have you on soon, hopefully with continued good news. You've done an amazing job keeping this case alive, and we wish you all the best. You can go to Warner as, like I said earlier, Freedom Council, and that's FreedomCouncil, freedomcouncil.org.
Yep.
They could really use your support. And you can follow Brooke. I am Brooke Jackson. That's her website. She also is a great follow on X. She's spicy and she's a fighter. And
If you keep
anything
that
else,
fire lit for me, Mary, I mean,
I think
what
we
you've done
trigger
is
each
just
other.
incredible.
Anything
Okay.
else? Anything that people can do to help? Any final thoughts, Warner and Brooke?
Well, I do want to point out that Brooke's website has all her documents on it. So if you are curious as a person as to what's going on, read our response to their motion to dismiss. Read what the government submitted and how really incoherent the government's submission last year was, asking for the case to be dismissed. And that'll help to understand this. I think. And the documents, I think, are even up there as exhibits to the complaint. The contract that they sign that says it has to be safe, effective vaccine. The contract that shows, again, that this is a military project, not a public health project. It's a countermeasure for military readiness. It says it right in there. So people, you say that to people and they think you're crazy. Like, this is public health. No, it isn't. It's military. It's countermeasure. But they had requirements nevertheless to have a safe and effective product for us. And that is not what we got. And we are not military, by the way. I'm a private citizen.
For every
Right.
man, woman, and child to be ready has to get this injection. It's just incredible. But like Warner said, it's right there. I do also encourage people to research as much as they can, read as much as they can. Mary, I can't wait for your book, by the way. I just sent
Thank you.
Warner my list of books that I'm reading now, and I still haven't finished one that I'm reading now, but I love the title, and it's Siri's book, Aaron Siri's book, and it's titled
Mm-hmm.
Vaccines, Amen. Like, how perfect is that
Yep.
title? Perfect
It's a
title, but I'm
religion.
excited. Right? It is.
Yeah.
It is, and I just, man, I'm not done. I'm going to keep fighting. I encourage everybody to do the same. Find, what your passion is. Mine is helping people. Who am I to not give people my time, my ear? So, just listening is something that I do. And maybe being a little bit spicy on Twitter too. I guess it's kind of like my journal in a way, just getting the information out on subjects that are important to me.
Well, thank y'all again, and we look forward to more good news, I hope. When do you think we'll hear any update? I mean, this has been dragging on so long. How
They
long
asked
till
us,
the next step?
it's interesting, they asked us for paper copies of our filings. You file electronically in the federal courts generally, but they recently asked for paper copies. I don't know why, but they're going to have those. I'm hoping that means somebody's going to read those paper copies and that we'll get an oral argument scheduled, and people should watch for that. It'll be public. You can listen to the oral argument. You can, and hopefully by then the federal government's changed its position. If it is not, you're going to see how inconsistent and incoherent the federal position is. So I think they need to get some consistency and coherence. I hope for that. I pray for that, and we'll see.
Where will those oral arguments be if they occur?
They're going to
Louisiana.
be in, yeah, they'll be in New Orleans at the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals there. People who are local, it's a public court. You can go and actually see the arguments. and meet Brooke and meet some of her attorneys. And but otherwise, it'll also be streamed online, so people can listen to it. So maybe we can get it streamed on Twitter or something, so people can hear the argument as it's taking place.
It is incredible, right?
Yeah.
Like, but you have 15 minutes, Warner. They have 15 minutes, right?
Right, right. You only have 15 minutes to make the oral argument. I mean, the papers in the case are obviously hundreds and hundreds of pages, but you have 15 minutes. You've got to make it count. And we initially put up a 10-minute argument. They get to rebut it 15 minutes, and then we come in and do a reply at the end for 5 minutes.
And hopefully we get
Well,
that
I will.
opportunity. There is something to be said about being in a courtroom, sitting across the table from these guys. I've been able to do it a couple of times, but the Department of Justice has asked the Fifth Circuit to deny us that opportunity, and it just be, I guess, a decision made based on our briefs. So I don't think that's fair. I don't like it. I want to be in there. I want to be able to represent the American people and be able to sit across and look at Pfizer as they, or the DOJ, really, and have that moment.
Yeah, I was there in Beaumont, and that was interesting. It's seeing all the battalion of lawyers on Pfizer's side versus Warner and Robert Barnes. It was. I thought y'all did an amazing job, and I'm definitely
They do.
going
Oh
to
my
New
gosh.
Orleans.
Let's not forget
Well,
Jeremy
that's
Friedman
good news
and,
for
and Lexus. Lexus was there too.
Oh,
We actually
sorry,
had four. We had four attorneys
you had
present
4.
in Beaumont, Texas. I think Bob and I probably talked most of the time. But
Yeah,
Alexis Anderson and Jeremy Friedman are part of our team. They've been an integral part of it. And Jeremy had some great things to say. He popped up at that hearing to make sure that some things were covered that I think he thought I had missed. So we really appreciate
yeah,
all the lawyers that have
Oh,
given us
yeah.
help on.
He had to throw in that baseball analogy there at the end, but I thought it was incredible when the judge asked Pfizer directly about whether, what would happen if the FDA gets it wrong. Are we just supposed to
hmm
live with that? That was a question that the judge asked directly of Pfizer, and Pfizer's response was exactly. So that says a lot
well,
too, you know.
there seems to be little oversight from the FDA based on what came out at that ACIP meeting. Well, I'm going to let y'all go, and we'll keep in touch. And good luck. Thank you for fighting. You've done an amazing job, and like I said, it all rests on your shoulders. No pressure, but I am optimistic.
Yeah, thank you
We're
for the
prisoners of
opportunity.
hope. What do we say?
All
Thank
right,
you.
y'all take care. Thank you.
Thanks,
All
Mary.
right.
And that's it for today. We will see you back next Wednesday. Remember, at 12 o'clock, I overlap with Shannon Joy, and then from 12:30 to 1:30, and I'm speaking Central Time Zone because I'm in Texas. Then we will talk to guests and talk to the chat. Thanks for joining. We'll see you next week.